you for joining us today. The Brattleboro area has just so many nonprofit groups that do excellent fundraising efforts. It's sometimes hard to find something that is a new niche. Well, the folks at Morningside Shelter have found it. We'll let them tell you about it. But joining us today on my left is Knowles Wentworth, and on my right, Libby Bennett and Paul Kapkara. You can tell Libby and Paul apart, of course. Thank you all for joining us today. And so tell me about this event. It sounds like you've found something that's really going to catch the public's attention.
Yeah, Tim, we're pretty excited. It's going to be the first annual Hike for the Homeless, and it's going to be held on Saturday, October 8th from 10 to 2. And people are going to have two options. One is to hike up Mount Wantasket, and the other is to hike along the river. For those who may not be in mountain shape, they'll have that option too. So we're really looking forward to it. We think it's going to be a beautiful day. Obviously, the fall colors will be out in full force. And I think it's going to be an exciting opportunity for people to come out and support the community, particularly those who are homeless and the less fortunate members of our community. So it's going to be an exciting day.
So how did you set upon a hike as a fundraiser?
I think it was a couple months ago where we sat down as a board and did some brainstorming about what would be an event. I think a lot of nonprofits want to capture that event that can be a year in and year out type thing. And so we narrowed it down from about 30 different ideas to about 5 that we liked. And my background, I'm the development director at Morningside, and my background's always been around mountains and hiking. And so it made sense to really to try to incorporate some of that into a fundraiser that we could do together. So I came up with this idea of Hike for the Homeless, and I wasn't alone. I Googled it after that, and in fact, I think there were 4 or 5 other shelters in the country who are using this Hike for the Homeless title to do something like this.
Explain the relationship, though, between hiking and not having a home.
Yeah, I got to say, one of the things that really attracted us about this event is it actually captured the flavor of the community, we thought, because, there's a lot of people who are active in this community, very much focused on the outdoors. It's in the fall, and so we're really going to be able to be out with folks who want to support the, shelter and support the homeless, but also in a way that is very Vermont. We're going to be up on the mountain looking back on Brattleboro, and there will be guides around. We'll be talking about homelessness and some of the impact it's had on our community. I think it's an event that combines something that's going to be recreational and fun, but also something to support the less fortunate in our community.
I would add to it by saying this, that if there is any connection between hiking and homelessness, I would think it'd be in the area of perspective. Because in reality, you go up to a summit, it gives you a grander perspective on life in general. And so if there is any symbolism, I think that's what we're trying to capture with this hike idea.
Makes very good sense. Now, are you setting any admission, or is it by donation? How's that going to work?
Yeah, Knowles will explain that in a little more detail. I just want to emphasize again, it's coming up on Saturday, October 8th from 10 to 2. And Knowles is going to give you a little more details of how the mechanics behind that work and what people can expect.
Sure. Yeah, Libby and I have been fast at work trying to land sponsors, and we have a whole host of folks, community businesses in town who have sponsored us, which we'll thank at some point. In addition to that, we have about 30 participants right now who, what they do is they start by visiting the website, and they click on the Events tab, and that will give them options to register for the event and to link to a fundraising engine called CrowdRise. And when you click on CrowdRise, that sets you up as an individual where you can basically utilize them to post to Facebook, send emails, etc., to get online donations.
And I should probably mention that the website is www.morningsideshelter.org. And that's really where people can get started. Once they go to morningsideshelter.org, they'll see right at the very top a Hike for the Homeless poster that you click on, and then that takes you down this path.
Mm-hmm. So nice idea. When you went out and talked to businesses, what kind of reaction did you get from them, Libby?
We think that a lot of our sponsors are really excited for this event, and they like the sort of ingenuity of doing this Hike for the Homeless that hasn't been done before in this community. And I think people are happy to support Morningside Shelter. This is an event that we intend to do annually, but hasn't been done before. So I think people are excited for an opportunity to support Morningside.
And let me mention some of those sponsors, Tim. We've gotten a lot of support from a lot of local organizations. I just want to thank especially TD Bank North, the Trust Company of Vermont, Hotel Pharmacy, Entergy, Lotus Graphics, the Richards Group, GPI Construction, Brown and Roberts Hardware, Richmond Auto Repair, Kerr Westland Funeral Home, Abatum Exterminating, Friends of the Sun, Good Enough Rubbish Removal, Merrill Gas Company, Verde for Home and Garden, and Newton Business. So as you can see, many people in the community are already supporting this event, and we still are open to additional sponsors. If anybody's interested in helping us out, again, they can go to the website, morningsideshelter.org, or they can call us at 257-0066, extension 101.
Very nice. Maybe you could let us know what's happening at Morningside in recent days. As I understand, over the past couple of years, there's been some renovation work, and you've tried to consolidate what you've had and make it a better experience for those who are trying to get back on their feet again.
Yeah, one of the things we've done is just last fall we expanded the shelter to give us about 30% more capacity, and boy, have we needed it. I will say, we have not had an empty shelter bed at Morningside for almost 3 years now, and we've had a waiting list of anywhere from about 10 to 40 people. Increasingly, a lot of those folks are in families, and that really was a change in our demographics over the last 4 or 5 years, and it caused us to need some new kinds of space in the shelter. So as part of the expansion, we not only added 2 new family rooms, but we added a children's play area with some toys and books for kids, and we were able to move the laundry to the first floor, which seems like a small thing, but before it had been in the basement, which was really hard on single moms because they couldn't take their children down into the scary basement, and at the same time it was hard for somebody to watch them while they were getting the laundry. So now they can be upstairs doing their laundry and keeping an eye on their kids who are in the children's play area where they get some interactive stimulation. So that was a real big shift for us, and I wish we had even more space because the demand has just been unbelievable.
Yeah, it's scary. You haven't had an empty bed in 3 years, and if you look out there's supplemental shelter space being opened during the winter, during bad weather. What's happening? Why is this happening in Brattleboro, Vermont?
Well, Paul speaks to this best. I mean, I can start off by saying that, we know that there are issues around affordable housing in Brattleboro, and that's the reason why there are so many organizations working on this issue. And then, how would you add to that, Paul? I mean,
I would say, we're seeing a real shift locally and in the state and really in the national economy. I just think that there's more and more folks who traditionally were barely making ends meet, and you add in things like wages not keeping pace with housing costs, and you look at gas going up, $3 or $4 a gallon, and you have somebody driving a 15-year-old SUV to their job where they're making $8 or $9 an hour, and they're paying $3 or $4 a gallon for gas, and pretty soon, you can do the math, and you just can't make ends meet anymore. So we're seeing more and more families that maybe traditionally would have been seen as middle class or lower middle class, who were just barely scraping by, and who are just, it just takes one crisis or one bump in fuel prices or one bad winter, and all of a sudden, we're seeing folks end up in the shelter. So I think that's a big part of it. Affordable housing is a huge issue, and wages, living wages that people can really make ends meet here, it's a serious problem.
Mm-hmm. But given all of that, what do you do to get people back on their feet and get them so they aren't destined to live out their years in a shelter or in a program?
Yeah, actually, that's where the magic happens at Morningside. We have this amazing staff there, and I'll just take a moment to tout the staff. They really do this fantastic thing day in and day out, where they meet with folks on a daily basis. They work with them to find the supports they need to be successful in the future. They hook them into maybe job training, healthcare, mental health services, hook them into things like food stamps, other supplemental services that they might need in order to get back up on their feet, and then they work intensively with them to find affordable housing. And sometimes that takes time. We've had folks in the shelter 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, but what we want to do is we want to make sure that when they leave the shelter, they're in a position to succeed. And then we have this wonderful outreach staff that will continue visiting them in their new homes, oftentimes for a year or two or more, to make sure that if they hit bumps in the road, they don't end up back homeless again. Because, to be honest, Tim, we just don't have the space to see people twice. So return business is just something we do not want to have. So once they get to us, we want to make really sure that they get the support and the assistance they need to get back up on their feet and be in a position to succeed down the road and not end up, homeless again.
How tough is it for someone whose only other choice might be staying with a family or in a bad situation or even worse on the streets to get that sense of, I can do this, that sense of self-esteem that would go along with having the kinds of success that your staff would be hoping that they would achieve?
Knowles can talk about this because one of the other things he does for us is run a program called our Representative Payee Program, and that's assisting disabled folks who otherwise may not be able to stay on their own and live independently and manage their money, and actually that's a service Knowles provides to them, along with a lot of, let's say, support and hand-holding and helping them be out there in the world and living independently successfully. So maybe he'll tell you a little more about that.
Could you frame up the question again, Tim?
Sure. Obviously, when someone is in a position where they need to go to a shelter like Morningside, a lot of things have gone wrong for them. One of the issues may be self-esteem, loss of self-confidence. How do you get them in a position where they can start coming back up the ladder again and realize that they can do it?
Yeah, it's a good point. To me, it all starts with an empathic opening and presentation when they first come through the door. And what we really want to do is welcome people, because as you point out, it definitely, it's a tough step to take to go from being housed to a homeless shelter. And when they walk in the door, they do want to be welcomed in a way where they immediately feel comfortable. And then, so we try to get that right off the bat. And then from there, truly, it's a matter of the first week or so, helping people kind of stabilize, adjust to life at the shelter. Before a couple weeks in, we can really start to focus on, let's talk about the reasons why you're homeless or why you've been homeless, and let's address these issue by issue so that when you do leave here, as Paul said, this doesn't happen again. So you're right, there is a period there where they really need a lot of encouragement, a lot of stabilization, but it does start with that empathic opening that we try to present folks with when they first come to the shelter.
And so, Tim, you can see there why I sleep well at night. That Knowles is the kind of folks we have at the shelter doing that with people, and they just do magic on a daily basis.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah.
So really, that might be a quick process. It might be a longer-term process. What's the key to turning somebody around?
Oh boy, I'll weigh in on that. One thing we've learned over the years is we can't do it for folks. Really, we can help facilitate it. We can be there to support them, but really, people have to be ready to do it, to do their part, to walk the walk. So, really, if there's one thing we like to say is, if we're working harder than the person we're working with, then we're probably not doing anyone any favors. So we try to meet people halfway. We try to make sure that they have the support, the other resources they need to be successful, but we also recognize that, people have choices, and people need to make the right choices and do the right thing too. And so we try to work hard to maintain that balance at the shelter.
To back that up too, as Paul's saying, we really don't have the space, if you will, to accommodate repeat customers. Though there are folks who've come to the shelter, crashed and burned, as we say in the field, relapsed that might be something that occurs, and then a couple months later, a year later, they call us again. They may be ashamed on the phone to have to say, "Hey, I need to come back to the shelter," but we do give folks second and sometimes third chances to come back and see if we can make it a successful exit this time around.
It's got to be tough, particularly when some of the comments you hear in the community are, all you're doing is making it a magnet for other people in need of service to come, and you're dragging the rest of us down. How do you get past that as an organization and make the message known to the community that that isn't the case? This is going to be something that happens anyway?
Yeah. Well, so we come on your show, and really, trust me, folks, when people are homeless, no one's sitting around and looking at a map and going, wow, Vermont would be a great place to be homeless. First of all, obviously, we've got a horrible winter here. If you're clever and you're looking for somewhere to be homeless, you're heading to Florida or like Southern California. Secondly, I can honestly say the vast majority of the people we serve are actually right here from our community. Over 80 to 85% are from either Brattleboro or their surrounding areas. We do occasionally get people from across the river in New Hampshire, but really that's the way our community works here anyway. So it is not like we're attracting homeless people to the community. They're here. And not only are they at the Morningside, there's folks living down by the river right now and under the bridge in the center of town. And these aren't folks from somewhere else. They are truly folks, many cases, born and raised in this community, or many cases like many of us have moved here and lived here a long time. So it's not an issue of attracting more homeless people to Brattleboro.
Mm-hmm. So why is there this stigma? Why do people have these kinds of mindsets?
Oh, I think everybody likes to believe that, it's not their problem. And also, I will say, I hear this over and over again from people in the shelter. They all say, I never thought I would end up in a homeless shelter. And I think it's a bit of self-protection in a sense to say, like, oh, that couldn't happen to me. It's the other people that happens to, people from somewhere else, people who are different from me. And I can say, if you came and visited our shelter, you would see everybody in Morningside looks a lot like you and me.
And it remains so visible too. I mean, when you're walking down the street, it might be clear to pick out people who may be under the bridge, for example. There are homeless populations that we quickly label, and that's the folks that a lot of people are under the impression that are down at the shelter. They may or may not be, but I think to answer your point, I think it's because of its visibility factor that people continue to create.
Yeah, and I think this is important for people to know, too. That may be the visible homeless that they associate with homelessness, but I'll tell you right now, the vast majority of people in our shelter have jobs. The person who's serving you lunch at McDonald's may be in our shelter. The person who's checking you out at Walmart. They're people that you're seeing in the community day in and day out, maybe serving you your coffee. And you just do not know that they're homeless. And so, again, I think people tend to make bad associations with the homeless that are highly visible, not realizing that really the homeless are truly all around us. I can go just about anywhere in Brattleboro and guarantee you I will see folks working, or in the community functioning who either are homeless now or have been homeless in the last several years. So,
thank you, Paul. That was my point that trailed off there. Yeah, thanks.
It's an important point because people really need to understand that we all have various parts of the economic spectrum, and in order to make it work, we've all got to find ways to work together. Given that, how can people give their time and their talents to Morningside? Just what, along with the upcoming hike for the homeless,
yeah, there you go. I was going to say, here's their grand opportunity. Saturday, October 8th, the hike for the homeless from 10 to 2. And folks need to just go to www.morningsideshelter.org. They can sign up that way. They could even call us. Let's say you're not of the high-tech bent. You could call us at 257-0066, extension 101, and we'll help explain how you can either hike or support a hiker. One thing I don't know if Noel's mentioned, but if you yourself are not somebody who wants to go out and either take a beautiful hike along the river or go up the mountain on that fine fall day on October 8th, you can support one of the other hikers in the community by giving a donation to support their hike. And so that would be magic. That's the kind of thing we really, really need in order to be able to function. Morningside is there 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Unlike some other organizations, we do not close because the people who we live and work with just never leave. They're there with us year-round. And so that takes a lot of resources in order to be able to be there for those folks. So I would strongly encourage people to check out that first annual Hike for the Homeless. It's going to be exciting, October 8th.
It's interesting. I still run across some really big misconceptions, including why would someone who needs assistance or be in the lower end of the economic strata, why would they be on a computer? Well, don't they need those kinds of job skills to be able to make a living?
Sure, and one of the things we do is make sure at the shelter we have things like high-speed internet access, because we recognize, folks need to be able to be on the web, looking for jobs, making contacts, and doing all those things that some folks take for granted, but that what really can make you successful in today's economy. So yes, those are the kind of additional supports we really try to focus in on, even though somebody might say, oh, why do you need a computer with high-speed internet access at a homeless shelter? Turns out those kind of things are critical for people to be able to be successful and to maintain some continuity in their life, which is important.
Yeah, a lot of the major employers ask that you would apply for their position online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's right.
It is amazing these days.
Before I forget to point it out, there's also a third way where folks can make a contribution towards this hike, and that is if they don't want to deal with any of the online stuff, they can just stop by Mount Wantasticate on October 8th between 10 and 2, and actually we'll have a jar out there, and folks can either do the hike or the walk and put some money in the jar without registering.
And there will be signs on the road showing you how to get there. I'm going to have Libby give us a little quick directions just for those folks who are wondering exactly where the hike will be started from.
Good idea, Libby.
Sure. So Mount Wantasticate's a big mountain, but we're starting from the Mountain Road trailhead, which is just over the second bridge on Route 119 in Hinsdale, just before the old Walmart Plaza. Mountain Road is an immediate left, and the trailhead is just out to the end of that road. We'll be starting the hike from there. We'd really like to see people stagger their hike and show up anytime between 10 and 2 so that we can sort of protect the mountain ecology. So let's see, what else can I say about that?
There'll also be things like water and beverages available for folks who need it, and there will be plenty of volunteers and guides to point folks along. But there will be signage, so you'll see once you get across that second bridge, like you're heading towards the old Walmart, it'll be on your left, the road on your left, and there will be lots of folks, we hope, around to point you in the right direction.
And of course, the suggestion probably would be some blaze orange clothing.
Huh. Oh, good point. That time of year, that could be a...
Yes.
Well, I think hunting season begins on November 1st, Tim.
Actually, hunting season begins the week before in Vermont.
Oh, okay.
So just in case.
All right. Just in case
we
there's
just
any
wanted
road
to add a
hunters.
little extra excitement to the hike. And,
Yeah, you want to make sure that you do everything possible when you're in a wooded situation to see and be seen.
You're right. That's right.
Yeah, that's a great point.
For those who are unsure about whether or not they want to hike, I can tell you it takes approximately 1 hour to get to the top if you want to hike to the summit. The river trail is about a half mile deep, so you'd end up going about a mile if you come to and from.
And that one's nice and flat for those of you who the idea of hiking up doesn't feel so comfortable.
But either way, there will be a gift for registered participants, and we'll have refreshments and water, and it should be a lot of fun.
You know, I've actually done both, and probably one of the most beautiful sights is the sight from the summit of Mount Wantasticate.
Yeah, for those who haven't been up there, I think this is going to be a fantastic time because obviously October 8th we should be looking at some real amazing foliage, and for those of you who haven't been up there and had that view back on Brattleboro and the mountains of Vermont, I think it's going to be a real special opportunity. So October 8th, 10 to 2.
With the rain date of October 9th, Sunday.
Thank you, Knowles.
Great point, because after all, we are in Vermont and we do have that possibility of rain.
And lately, that seems to be a really big possibility. So yeah, good point, Noel. Sunday, October 9th will be the fallback. If it happens to be pouring rain on the 8th, you know you can show up between 10 and 2, Sunday, October 9th.
Has that affected any of your programs, the fact that we have had a fairly significant rainfall and some major flood damage, or have you been able to escape all that with your programs?
Well, I got to be honest, one thing it does do is our hearts go out to all those folks who were impacted by this storm, because really we deal with homelessness, like I said, 365 days a year, and we know what it means to these folks who are suddenly finding themselves nowhere to live. We were fortunate in the sense that the shelter is on high ground, so our shelter itself escaped any serious damage. There was a little bit of a roof leak that we're working on right now, but we feel fortunate in that regard. But I got to say, Tim, one of the things is like I said, we have been full for 3 years without an empty bed and with a long waiting list. So unfortunately, we feel really horrible for those impacted by the storm. And we do have a few of those folks in the shelter right now and plenty more on our wait list that we hope to be able to help soon. But in terms of having capacity to be able to house all those people immediately, it's just not there right now in our community.
So again, first annual hike for the homeless, coming up on October the 8th, rain date October the 9th. Congratulations with this great idea and good luck.
Thank you very much, Tim.
Our guests have been Paul Kapkara, Libby Bennett, and Knowles Wentworth, joining us from Morningside Shelter in Brattleboro. And again, here's a chance to, as they say, get the lard out and help out your fellow human being. Please do so if you can. This is Tim Johnson. Thanks for joining us.